I was in my sophomore year of college back in 2018, studying architecture at a small school in Oregon. Life was pretty normal back then. Classes during the day, late-night study sessions, and cheap coffee from the vending machines that never tasted right but somehow kept you awake. I lived in an old dorm called North Hall. The building looked ancient, made of red bricks that had probably been there since the 1950s. It creaked when the wind blew and always smelled like dust and damp wood. Most people hated it, but I kind of liked the quiet, especially at night when everyone else was asleep and the whole place went still. That's usually when I worked on my design projects. It was around 2:30 in the morning one night when I ran out of coffee. I threw on a hoodie and decided to head down to the basement to grab another cup from the vending machine. The hallway lights were flickering as usual, giving off that weak yellow glow that barely lit the way. As I walked past room 101, something caught my eye. There was a door at the very end of the hall that I'd never noticed before. And that didn't make sense. I've been living there for almost 2 years. I knew every inch of that hallway. This door looked old, with chipped gray paint and a worn brass handle. No room number, no sign, just a door. For some reason, I couldn't help myself. I tried the handle. It turned easily, and a cold rush of air came out from the darkness beyond. I pointed my phone flashlight inside. It wasn't a room. It was a narrow, concrete corridor, maybe 15 feet long, with another door at the end. I hesitated, but curiosity got the best of me. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. My flashlight flickered, even though my phone battery was full. When I reached the end of the corridor, I saw a small metal sign next to the second door. Most of the letters were scratched off, but I could still read part of it. It said Lab B11. That didn't make any sense. North Hall didn't have labs. The science buildings were all on the other side of campus. I slowly pushed the door open, and it made this long, drawn-out creak. Inside was a large room, completely dark except for the faint beam from my phone. Dust covered everything. Old lab tables, broken glass, stacks of papers yellowed with age. I picked one up and read the top line. Behavioral Study, 1979. Underneath it said, Unauthorized subject data. My first thought was that maybe this was some kind of storage space for old research. But before I could look closer, I heard it, a low humming sound like static or electricity running through the walls. Then one of the ceiling lights flickered on for just a second. And in that split second, I saw someone sitting at a table across the room, perfectly still, facing away from me. The light went out again, and the hum got louder. I froze. My flashlight started glitching, flashing on and off, and then it just died completely. The air felt heavier, like the whole room was pressing in around me. I could feel in my chest. And then I heard breathing. Slow, steady breathing just a few feet behind me. I didn't even turn around. I grabbed the door handle and pulled as hard as I could, but it was jammed. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. I yanked again, and finally, the door flew open. I stumbled back into the hallway, gasping for air. The second I stepped out, the cold was gone. The humming stopped. Everything was silent. I looked back to make sure the door was closed. Only it wasn't there anymore. The entire wall was smooth. No door, no handle, nothing. I stood there for a long minute trying to understand what I'd just seen, then ran back upstairs and locked my room. The next morning, I went to the maintenance office and asked about Lab B11. The guy at the desk frowned and said, "There's no lab in North Hall, kid. Never has been." I even looked up the building's floor plan online later. There was no mention of a corridor or a basement. Lab. Nothing even close. A few days later, I went back down there in daylight, just to be sure I hadn't dreamed it. The hallway ended right where it always had, at room 101. No door, no sign, no corridor. But that night, something even stranger happened. My phone flashlight app stopped working. When I opened it, the screen froze and showed a single blurry image, what looked like that same dark room with the lab tables. And if you zoomed in, you could see a figure sitting at the far end, head turned slightly, like it was looking straight at the camera. I deleted it immediately. A week later, one of the maintenance workers went missing. His name was Eric. I didn't know him personally, but campus security said the last place his key card had been used was North Hall basement at 2:37 a.m. The same time I found that door. They never found him. Even now, years later, when I visit that campus, I still walk by North Hall sometimes. And on quiet nights, when the lights flicker just right, I swear I can see the faint outline of that same door on the wall. The one that shouldn't be there. The one that maybe is still waiting for someone else to open it.